The storm had come without warning, as they often did on Varkesh Prime. James clutched the navigation device in his hand, watching its screen flicker and die as electromagnetic interference from the violet lightning rendered it useless. He was 3 kilometers from the research outpost. Might as well have been 300. The human geologist had been cataloging mineral deposits in the crystalline canyons when the sky turned black. Now rain fell in sheets so thick he could barely see his own boots. He needed shelter, and fast. A sound cut through the howling wind, high-pitched, desperate. James froze. He knew that sound from the safety briefings. Varkesh cubs. Young ones, by the tone, every instinct screamed at him to run. Adult Varkesh were apex predators, 3 meters of muscle, claws, and teeth that could shear through battle armor. The entire galaxy gave them a wide berth. But those cries, James found them huddled in a shallow cave, 3 cubs no bigger than house cats, their silver fur matted with rain and mud. They hissed at his approach, displaying needle-sharp teeth, but their bodies shook with cold and fear. One had its paw caught between fallen rocks. "Easy," James murmured, though they couldn't understand English. "Easy there, he should leave." The safety protocols were clear. Never approach Varkesh young. The parents would kill any creature that came near. But the trapped cub was crying, and the storm showed no signs of stopping. James worked quickly, using his geological tools to lever the rocks apart. The cub snapped at his gloved hands but scrambled free once released. All 3 cubs retreated to the back of the shallow cave, watching him with luminous yellow eyes. The cave wouldn't protect them. Water was already pooling inside, and the temperature was dropping rapidly. James made a decision that would either save lives or end his. He gathered the driest deadfall he could find, using his body to shield the wood from the rain. His emergency kit contained waterproof matches. Thank God for human paranoia. Within minutes, he had a small fire crackling at the cave's entrance, positioned to provide warmth without smoking them out. The cubs crept closer to the heat, their fear gradually overcome by cold. James pulled emergency rations from his pack and tossed dried meat toward them. They devoured it hungrily. Hours passed. The storm raged. James kept the fire fed, aware that every moment he stayed increased the danger. Adult Varkesh would return. They would smell him. They would attack. But the cubs had curled against each other near the fire, occasionally glancing at him with something that looked almost like trust. Dawn broke gray and cold. The storm had passed, leaving the canyon transformed by rushing water and fallen stone. James was preparing to leave when he heard it, a roar that vibrated through his chest cavity. 3 adult Varkesh materialized from the mist, each massive and terrifying. The lead female, clearly the cub's mother, had her lips pulled back in a snarl that exposed fangs as long as James's forearm. Behind her, 2 males took flanking positions. James stood slowly, hands visible and empty. The cubs scrambled toward their mother, chirping excitedly. The female sniffed them thoroughly, her eyes never leaving James. This was it. His final moment. At least the cubs were safe, but the killing blow never came. The mother Varkesh approached the dying fire, examining it with obvious intelligence. She looked at her cubs, at James, at the remains of his shared rations. One of the cubs, the one James had freed from the rocks, limped toward him fearlessly and touched its nose to his hand. The mother's growl shifted in tone. Not friendly, but different. She turned and called to her pack. Then, inexplicably, she looked back at James and made a sound, a short, sharp bark that seemed deliberate. The Varkesh moved off into the canyon, the cubs trailing behind. At the ridgeline, the mother looked back once more before disappearing. 6 days later, the elite guard patrol found James half dead from exposure, stumbling through the canyon 2 kilometers from where his emergency beacon had activated. Captain Leah Thorne led the rescue team herself. The human research station had been in an uproar since James vanished. "You're lucky to be alive," Leah said, wrapping a thermal blanket around his shoulders as the shuttle lifted off. "This area is Varkesh hunting territory. We've lost 3 soldiers here in the last year." "I know," James croaked. "I met some." Leah's expression shifted from concern to disbelief as James told his story. "No one survived close contact with Varkesh. No one. You're either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid," she said when he finished. "Probably both," James admitted. But they were just scared cubs in a storm. "What was I supposed to do?" 2 weeks later, Leah was leading a patrol near the same canyon when her motion sensors went wild. 12 Varkesh signatures moving in formation, hunting pack behavior. The elite guard team raised weapons, preparing for an attack that would likely kill them all. The Varkesh emerged from cover. The lead female, James had described her perfectly, approached to within 10 meters. Behind her, the cubs James had saved peeked curiously at the armored soldiers. The mother lowered her massive head and dropped something at Leah's feet before retreating. When the Varkesh had disappeared, Leah approached cautiously. It was a crystalline formation worth a fortune, the exact rare mineral James had been searching for. And wrapped carefully around it was James's lost navigation device. Leah looked toward where the Varkesh had vanished. In the trees, Yellow Eyes watched peacefully before fading into shadow. Back at the outpost, as Leah handed James his recovered equipment, she understood something the rest of the galaxy had missed. Humans didn't survive because they were the strongest or the fastest or the most advanced. They survived because when a human found someone helpless in a storm, their first instinct wasn't to calculate the risk. It was to build a fire and share their food. Even if that someone had claws and fangs and could tear them apart. Even if it made no logical sense, that insane compassion, that illogical empathy, that was humanity's real weapon. And it was more powerful than any technology or military might. Leah smiled as she filed her report, knowing James's story would spread across the human colonies. Another tale of why humans, despite being small and soft and weak, somehow kept earning the respect of the galaxy's most dangerous species. One campfire at a time.